Over the past few decades, there have been multiple players who forced their way off the teams that drafted them. From John Elway to Bo Jackson to even as recently as Eli Manning. There have also been players that have chosen to play for the alternate football leagues, rather than the NFL, like the USFL back in the days, like Jim Kelly, Herschel Walker, Steve Young, and Reggie White. Things like that don't happen very often, but when they do, it not only rocks the boat for the team that is drafting them, but the league as a whole. We have not seen anything like it in almost 2 decades. But with there now being 2 alternative spring leagues, could we see a player take a risk and bet on themselves? Let's talk about that. Let's take a look at a few case studies to get an idea of why players choose not to play for the teams that drafted them. John Elway was drafted by the Baltimore Colts, first overall in 1983, but refused to sign with them and threatened to play baseball instead. He did not want to play for the Colts because he disliked their owners, he did not like their style of play, and he refused to play in a cold weather city and wanted to either play on the West Coast or for the Dallas Cowboys or Miami Dolphins. He used his contract he had with the New York Yankees to leverage the Colts to trade him, and he eventually was traded to the Denver Broncos, where he had a Hall of Fame career and won 2 Super Bowls. Bo Jackson was the next player to refuse to play for the team that drafted him. Jackson was taken first overall in the 1986 draft by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but refused to play for them because he felt they sabotaged his baseball eligibility at Auburn. According to Bo Jackson and some sources, the Buccaneers sabotaged his baseball eligibility by flying him to Tampa for a pre-draft physical and then reporting it to the NCAA as a violation. Jackson believed that the Buccaneers did this on purpose to make him give up baseball and focus on football, since he was a star in both sports. This angered Jackson, who told the Buccaneers not to draft him, but they did anyways with the first overall pick in 1986. Jackson refused to sign with them and instead played baseball for the Kansas City Royals. He later joined the Los Angeles Raiders as a part-time player while still playing baseball when they drafted him the following year. Eli Manning, to my understanding, is the last player to refuse to play for the team that drafted him. Manning was the first overall pick in the 2004 NFL Draft, having been taken by the San Diego Chargers. He did not want to play for the Chargers because he felt like the front office and organization was a mess, their fans lacked the passion he hoped for in a team that he played for, and he had the leverage to pull this move off with the support of his agent and the backing of his father due to how highly of a touted of a prospect he was. The Chargers would trade Manning to the Giants, where he would go on to win 2 Super Bowls. There have also been players who chose to play for alternate football leagues rather than the team that drafted them, but they would eventually find their way to the team that drafted them eventually. Jim Kelly refused to play in a cold city coming out of college, but would be drafted by the Buffalo Bills in 1983. He instead chose to sign with the Houston Gamblers of the USFL. He played 2 seasons in the USFL and passed for 9,842 yards and 83 touchdowns before the league collapsed. He joined the Bills in 1986 and led them to 4 Super Bowl appearances. Herschel Walker, who was drafted by the Dallas Cowboys in 1985, chose instead to play for the New Jersey Generals of the USFL. He played 3 seasons in the USFL and rushed for 5,562 yards and 54 touchdowns. He chose to play in the USFL because they offered him a contract that the NFL would not match and allowed him to choose the team he wanted to play for. He joined the Cowboys in 1986 and was later traded to the Minnesota Vikings in a blockbuster deal. Steve Young, who was drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals in 1984, chose to sign with the USFL after they offered him a record-breaking contract to play for the Los Angeles Express of the USFL. He played 2 seasons in the USFL and threw for 4,149 yards and 31 touchdowns. He joined the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 1985 and was later traded to the San Francisco 49ers, where he won a Super Bowl and 2 MVP awards. He did not have to sign with the Bengals because he had already signed the record-breaking deal with Los Angeles, so it voided their rights for him. Reggie White, who was drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles in 1984, chose to sign with the Memphis Showboats of the USFL. He played 2 seasons in the USFL and had 23.5 sacks. He joined the Eagles in 1985 and became one of the best defensive players of all time. He later played for the Green Bay Packers and won a Super Bowl. So you may be wondering how a player can refuse to play for the team that drafted them. There are 2 major ways that come to mind, and with the spring leagues finding success nowadays, it gives the players more power than they've ever had. Those 2 ways are they hold out or demand a trade. A player can refuse to sign a contract or report to the team that drafted them, and hope that that team will trade them to another team that they prefer. However, this can backfire if the team does not agree to a trade, or if they lose leverage or money by sitting out. The second way, and the way that sparked this video idea, is choosing to play in another league. A player can choose to play in another league instead of the NFL, such as the USFL, CFL, or XFL. However, this could backfire if the other league is not as competitive or lucrative as the NFL, or they get hurt, or it folds or suspends operation. With USFL going into year 2, and with the XFL so far having a strong first season under ownership of The Rock, Danny Garcia, and Redbird Capital, the idea seems way more feasible than maybe 5 years ago. It feels like these spring leagues are here for the long run. He said hopefully, and the leagues may try to attempt to make headlines by trying to make a big name player come to play for them. There is a player that quickly comes to mind who made their preferences known for the teams they hope to draft them, and who does not really care what the public image of himself is. That player is Caleb Williams. Now, I'm not saying Caleb Williams is going to do this, but he is the person who inspired this idea. Caleb Williams started his career at Oklahoma, where he took over the starting quarterback job midway through the 2021 season. He put up big numbers, and many felt he should have been in the Heisman conversation. When head coach Lincoln Riley shocked the world and chose to take the head coaching job at USC, Williams decided to follow him. This past season, he won the Heisman Trophy, and although he is not eligible for the NFL Draft until 2024, he already expressed his preferences for playing for the Miami Dolphins when he enters the league. According to an interview with People magazine, Williams said he liked being around younger coaches, and he would be able to play with talented players like Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Mike Gesicki on the Dolphins. He also liked the Dolphins' colors and weather in Miami. Williams also mentioned some other teams that interested him, such as San Francisco, Las Vegas, and Atlanta. But he said the Dolphins are probably his number 1 spot. Williams' comments have generated some reaction from the NFL fans and analysts, some of whom think he is being too presumptuous or unrealistic, while others think he's being honest and ambitious. Williams is considered one of the top prospects of the 2024 NFL Draft, after he passed for 4,537 yards and 42 touchdowns with only 5 interceptions in 2022. He also rushed for 1,027 yards and 12 touchdowns on the ground, leading USC to a decent record and a loss in their bowl game. It is highly unlikely that the Dolphins will have the number 1 pick next year, so it got me thinking, why would he say something like this knowing that the Dolphins are probably a fringe playoff team? The obvious reason is because he can. But what if he wants to shake up the football world? What if he really wants to play for one of those teams he mentioned? Could he choose to play in a spring league like the XFL or USFL? With NIL now a part of the college football landscape, I think this could lead to the possibility of something like this happening. Let's say Caleb decides to take a pay cut to play in one of these spring leagues next year. This means he does not need to play for the NFL team that drafts him, if he does this before the draft. You take the pay cut because you know you can make it up in sponsorship deals down the line, and you already have a ton of NIL money. Williams plays in the spring league for the lone season, and then we'll have a bidding war for his talents after the season, barring he doesn't get hurt and plays decently. If you're the XFL or USFL, you jump at this opportunity and figure out a way to pay a guy like this his minimum asking price. Not only will it bring in a ton of eyeballs to your league, but you will constantly be in every headline for as long as the season goes on, giving you more and more publicity. This could give your league more revenue and power down the road. It seems like a win-win for both sides. The issue is, a player needs to be willing to take the risk. As of now, Caleb is the only hope of this happening, and it basically is a pipe dream. But could you imagine if this was done and actually worked? It would change the football landscape forever. Man, I hope we get to see something like this because it's just too juicy of a story. But what do you think? Could you see a college prospect betting on themselves to play in a spring league over the NFL to give themselves control of their destiny? And if so, who? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out one of my other videos right here. Don't forget to leave a like and to subscribe for more college football content. Thank you so much for watching. I could not be more thankful for y'all. You guys make this all possible for me, and as always, remember to embrace the grind.